Man, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to get started with this one. I don't know about you guys, but I got into business so that I can have more time to do the things that I want to do. And today's guest built some nice businesses with some nice monthly revenue with zero formal training. You want to learn how he did it? Pay attention to this one. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Boss. He ditched the suit for a tie. He ditched a suit and tie for street smarts and sweat equity, grinding from the auto industry to $300,000 a month in real estate, all while raising 4 kids and never missing a single game. He built 4 booming businesses with no college, no handouts, no excuses. I'm excited to talk to this guy. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Robert Howard. Welcome to the program, Robert.
Hey, man, I feel like I'm walking up to an at-bat or something, man. You make me want to take a swing.
That's what I'm talking about. Get your energy up, get you hyped. I mean, this is all about you. So let's do this. Take me back, man. How did you even get started in the auto industry? How did it kind of shape your approach to real estate wholesaling? I heard from somebody who used to sell cars that is probably the best sales training anyone can get. What was your background like that?
Man, hands down, it really is. And I mean, when it comes to me, I could talk about that kind of stuff, man, all day. But first, man, I want to recognize you, Hearn. I thank you so much for having me on the show. I've followed your podcast for a while. And, man, I just want to acknowledge just how consistently you deliver just like real, like no BS, no fluff, just straight value to your audience.
Appreciate
And,
it.
man,
Thank
that
you.
takes some real dedication, takes some real work. And I mean, what you at, like 1,400 episodes or something sick like that?
Yeah, you're 1401, man.
Yeah,
And had it
there
for
we
quite
go,
some
man.
time.
Yeah, thanks. See, I guess that's why I got that drum roll intro. But
That's
man,
right.
I'm genuinely honored to be here today.
Well, thank you.
And
Appreciate it.
for everybody that's listening, man, if you got even one helpful thing, out of this show, like any idea, anything, take a second, like you said, leave a 5-star review. I mean, your favorite platform was Apple, Spotify, wherever you get them. I left mine, so y'all do come join me.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much.
Yeah. Now, you know how a lot of people, man, they want to start investing in real estate, but they feel a little bit overwhelmed. A lot of them are short on cash. They're scared of making a mistake. I mean, I was too. They've tried like your YouTube universities, man, your seminars. They've called random sellers, but nothing just gives them just like that clarity or just that confidence to just take action. So, kind of what I do, I help brand new investors land their first deal, without the cold calling. They don't have to risk big money and they don't have to feel lost. And what I use, man, I call it a no risk revenue method. So they can finally get started building some real wealth, just one smart deal at a time. But I'll tell you, Hearn, that's not where it started for me. Like you said, cutting my teeth in the auto industry. Man, I can remember, like you said, 20 years was how long I stayed in the industry before I was able to retire um, from that profession. But I remember walking in there, man. I started, even the car business was pretty early. Started at 18 years old. I walked in there just to get an interview, and the guy actually sent me home. He basically said, hey man, take your earrings out, put a tie on. So he sent me home, and I could have just stopped there, but that was just like one of the first pivotal moments. Like, look, man, if you want something, you got to go for it. You got to push through
Hmm.
to try to see what's on the other side. I went home, took my earrings out, put a tie on, and from there, the rest was history. And that was just coming then from just a high school graduate, had just dropped out of college because I moved out a little bit too early. Before I was ready. I was one of those kids that wanted to be grown too fast, and life definitely punched me in the nose. So, they say everybody got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah, but But let's be honest, man. Let's be honest. When you're young, you're going to do some impulsive things because you're trying to get on your own 2 feet. And sometimes that slap in the face is exactly what you need to get you moving in the direction you want to go. So you kind of got slapped, got told to put on a tie, got told to take your earrings out. You spent some time doing the auto industry. What'd you learn and what'd you take away from there?
Well, from the auto industry, I learned to have a lot of tenacity because, as you can imagine, in that business, you're gonna get a whole lot of no's. So, cars are too expensive. People, whether they can't afford the payment, whether they got to check with their wives, you're not ready right now, and you just get used like that whole time, just hearing just like no, 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 no. So it builds your tenacity, it builds your resilience, and I use that, to transfer into our other businesses because you'll know that the guy normally who wins is the guy who can last the longest.
Mm-hmm.
That's in anything. So I've been through the grueling, the ups and downs. When business was good, when business was not so good, but I stayed consistent in the processes that we set in place, and just continue to just build off any little momentum. We did the same thing, every single day. Easy to say, well, easier said than done, but if you grab a metal spoon and you tap that brick wall in the same place, 100,000 times, whatever it is, at some point, it's gonna crumble because you just continue to hit that same spot. So that's what we try to do in business. Just hit that same spot. Just be very tenacious and consistent about the things that we do to
Now
generate.
you hear that over and over again. Successful people aren't the smartest people in the world. They just didn't give up. They kept going at something at a skill set until they got really, really good at it. And I think it's easier said than done because you look at like if you walked in again, you were that young 20-year-old kid walking into the dealership trying to get that first job, and you're there and you're finally out there, kind of excited to talk to that first client, and you start hearing some no's. But then you look over at the veteran guy, the guy who's been here 20 years, right? And he's just chilling and and the deals for some reason are just coming his way, and you look at him and you look at you and you're like, I'm doing something wrong, but you don't realize that some of the habits that you need to put in place are the no's that you're going through, or are the things that are going to develop over time. You talk about implementing these systems, having these habits in place. What are some of those things that people can do so they can make sure that I get it, I'm not going to get a six-pack overnight, but if I do these things, I'm going to develop it?
Well, you start inside out too. That's the first thing you have to be is definitely accountable to yourself. So if something ain't going right, you don't try to look around and figure out who you're gonna blame. The first thing, and I tell my kids this too, first thing you do is look in the mirror first and
Hmm.
say, what could I have done? What could I do better? And when you start there and start that inside out work, it gets easier and easier, day by day. And it starts too with a good morning routine. I can tell you, I've read several books, man, even from 5 a.m. Club. I mean, you name it. I've read them. But you do have to start with a consistent routine. Start early in the morning. And for me, um, that was one of the tougher things. I got that a little bit later because in the car business, you're working 12 to 14-hour days. So it's tough to find any time. But when it's something that you want, something that's a goal of yours, and you know what's on the other side, then you go ahead and put that time in. So for me, it was um I was working from like 8:30 a.m. to 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. Graduate all the way up to general sales manager and all that, where you're key turning, you there from open to close. So you don't really get that time. um, so what I did was before work, I would get up sometimes, 5, 6 a.m. and I would even get on leads. I'd be trying to send text messages, emails. When I got my lunch break, I try to get in touch with the owners, to set an appointment for my one off day. I remember like yesterday, there was just one Sunday, and I was just exhausted. We went on my daughter who started the business with me. Um, we went on 13 appointments on a Sunday, and that's after working like all week. So I make those calls in the middle, and then at nighttime, I would do like my research, trying to figure out the value of houses, get my ARVs down, and I'd do that from whatever time I got home. I'd spend 2 to 3 hours on that. So during those times, one of the things I had to sacrifice, of course, was sleep. But I just wanted it so bad that I just kept focusing on what was on the other side.
It's not the easiest thing in the world again to do, but the consistency pays off. I bet you the first time you're going on 13 appointments on a Sunday, you're not very good at closing those deals. But the second time you got a lot better, the third time you got a lot better. All of a sudden, your closing ratio gets better and better, and you got this speech that you have. Essentially, it's your pitch when you get to homeowners. You're able to really get an analysis of what the situation is. You understand the market a lot better because you've been doing it for a while, and the deals start to close more and more. I think what you're describing here, the process that you're going through, is a wholesaling process. For
Yeah.
someone who has no money, no connections, no degree like you had at the beginning, how does someone get started in wholesale real estate?
Man, wholesaling. Well, first I'll tell you what wholesaling is for the rest of the audience. I know you're pretty familiar with it, but what you do is you find someone that's willing to sell their home at a set price to you, and you find your buyer, someone is willing to buy that home. Normally, it's investors or people that want rental houses um, at a set price. So, for the sake of round numbers, let's call it a $50,000 house. You get somebody say they want to sell the house for 50,000, and you get somebody that want to buy it for 60,000. Then that 10,000 in between, that's your money, and you've done that literally with no cash out of your pocket because now you're just mating the sellers and the buyers, and you don't have to actually pay for that. And the crazy thing about it, I know here in Alabama, you don't even need a real estate license for it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so it's to me. I mean, I don't like to coin the term, but it really is easy money.
Yeah, you by the way, you don't need a license here in California either to do the wholesaling because you're not actually representing buyers or sellers. You're locking in a property under contract and then you're selling the paper, which is the contract that you locked in to whoever it is that you're moving on to. So as long as you're not doing any client representation, you're fine. Although if you do have a real estate license and you work with investors, you can get the listing on the purchase side and then turn around and usually with the investors after they do the flip or whatever they're going to do, will list with you again to sell it. So that's kind of a plus if you do have a license, but there's no need for it because you're not representing.
Absolutely. And you said, and I used to call it paper profits. A lot of people get mad at me for it, but that's generally, I mean, realistically, that's what it is.
So
You know,
how do people get started? And once they get started, what's one of the big mistakes you see beginners make that keep them broke in that game?
the way you get started, I tell you, you find free sources. So if you want to find somebody that's selling their house, I mean, you go on Zillow. You know, you find people that may have had a listing that's older, that's expired or something like that, and you know they're wanting to get off of. So that's, I mean, that's pretty easy right there. You have records that you can pull from the courthouse. Those are free. You can pull the foreclosure list or something like that. All these sources are just free sources. And then at that point, just about everybody's information is public record. So you can look that person up, get a phone number for them, call them. But if it's on Zillow, they're going to have a number there anyway. So that's how you would get started. You would get started by calling them, set an appointment to come out and view their house. There's a lot of more intricate things in between there. Of course, like figuring out what the ARV is, figuring out maybe what it costs to fix up the house. But that stuff is getting a little bit deep into it. But if you can get the appointment, that should help. And I'll tell you, one of the things that helped me, I did it a little bit backwards, which is why I've even started helping people now. Because I took my own money, spent a ton of money in marketing before I even knew what I was doing. And over the course of probably 9 months, I didn't get not one single deal. And at that point, I had invested in courses, in training, webinars. I was buying leads. I was doing all this stuff, and shameful to say, man, I spent about close to $50,000
Mm.
at like no deal at all. And it wasn't until I ran into this young lady that I would happen to be trying to get into somebody's house, and she already had it under contract. But the lady contracted with me later on, and I had no clue. And so her and I kind of bump heads, and she's like, "Look, you're going about this the wrong way." And so she kind of taught me, some tricks of the trade, which if I had met her a long time ago, could have saved a bunch of money. And everybody tells you success is going to leave clues, obviously. And she was having success, and I didn't have to really reinvent the wheel. It was somebody that had already done it, had already failed, and that's the same thing that I offer. So
Do you feel like, because I know in the wholesale game, a lot of times it's you have to be out there asking for the appointment, right? Trying to make the appointment with the client. And you're going to get like 99 out of 100 no's to get that one person to say yes. And then finally, when you get the appointment, you're going to need like 10 appointments before you show up, and maybe one actually closes. There's a long process in getting that stuff done. Do you feel like when you went into like the advertising and marketing aspect of it, that you were trying to shortcut the game and kind of, cut corners here where sometimes the fundamentals tend to work out a little bit better? Or do you feel like you just didn't understand the marketing aspect of it yet because you were a little bit younger? Or where do you think you fell during that time?
well, I can say from my experience in the car business, I definitely understood the marketing part of it, which was why I called myself going to try to take all these shortcuts. So I was thinking it's just something I can just throw money at because you have, one or two things, time or money.
Mm-hmm.
So I was throwing money at it because I had this job where I'm working, 70, 80 hours a week. So I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to dedicate that. If I can just throw this money at it, then it comes to me. And when it's coming, I did it like I didn't even know what to do with it. You know, it's like having because I had no system, no processes, just burnt money.
Mm.
Now, granted, by the time I got to 8 or 9 months, it was worth it because my very first deal, I was able to make like $25,000 on it from just one deal. But on average, on a wholesale deal, you're making, probably $10,000 spread on
Mm.
average is what it makes. And I went from doing that, before I transitioned, doing that part time. So it started to get, steady like one deal a month. And then, you get to 2 to 3 deals a month pretty consistently. And at that point, you start thinking, hey, man, I can probably make a career out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Probably do this. And then thinking about all the time now to fast forward that it's afforded me with my family, it was a cheap lesson in retrospect.
Now, how did you manage being a present father while operating four businesses at once, while building this stuff, while having to work at the dealership? I mean, that's a lot of time that you have to definitely dedicate. How did you balance building those businesses and being a father?
It came like anything that's worth having. It came with a lot of sacrifice. I mentioned one of them. One of them was, I sacrificed my sleep. I definitely had a lower quality of life because everything I was doing is just on the rush, 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 rush. And although I was present at my kids' functions and all that stuff, I wasn't really present. So
Hmm.
I'd be kind of just flying by, like my daughter, like, hey, it's a spelling bee. Hey, it's a game. And it's like, hey, dad's here. Hey, game's over. All right, guys, get it back to work. And it was just kind of that little thing like that. So it was very tough to juggle, but I did find it worth it. So that's why I kept going. And at the end of that reason was to be able to have the time that I have now and the freedom. So
We're living in some treacherous financial times. Everything, every time I go to the grocery store, it feels like the prices just keep going up and up and up. And I'm wondering sometimes how people have the ability to they have too much month at the end of their money, I'm sure, and they're dipping into credit cards and struggling. And I always encourage, you gotta, especially nowadays, you gotta have that side hustle. You gotta have something on the side to substantiate some of that income that you're not able to make on your regular W-2 job. But they always have that answer of, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. What's your like no BS answer when you talk to people and they say, I don't have time to start a side hustle, or I don't have time to do wholesaling, or I don't have time to start that real estate business?
when they said, I tell them, I mean, you must love your life the way it is,
Mm.
because otherwise, if you're not gonna make the sacrifices, if you're gonna do some hard stuff, you're never gonna get to the other side of anything. Because if things were easy, everybody would be doing it. It's the people that find, deep down inside that they have this fire burning in them that they almost cannot do it. So it got to the point where I would literally, if I missed a day like without calling or something like that, like I would literally be frantic. Like, man, like what did I miss? Like, cause I knew I wanted it so bad and I wanted to get to that other side. But I tell them, I mean, if you aren't willing to do that, you aren't willing to put the time in, then obviously you're missing something. You like your life the way it is. And everybody didn't have to make, $1 million or all this money or something like that. Some people are happy with, where they are, but if it's just the time and the freedom, then you can transfer that too. But you got to figure out, and it doesn't necessarily have to be wholesaling, whatever it is that you can find, on the side. And I'm never a proponent for people just going out, quitting their job. Because, like in this case, waited till I got to a point where it will replace that income.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because I mean, I may have worked on it like over 2 years, 2.5 years before I was even at a point like, okay, well, now I can step away because people give you this get rich quick scheme and give you unrealistic timelines and all that stuff. But I know one thing for sure, man. If I just had to, and it only takes 10 hours a week, really. But if I can take that time and make me an extra 10 grand a month, it's a no brainer for me. And that's just on like one deal. So,
My students right now at the beginning of the school year are playing cash flow, and it's one of the coolest things
yes,
to watch them like start to understand how this cash flow statement works and how these investments can make them money, and then they understand the whole passive income and that whole idea of when your investments cover your expenses, you're out of the rat race. And I figured, when you were talking about, not being able to leave your job until you have that income, the whole point behind that is at that point, it doesn't mean you're rich, but it does mean that you're wealthy. It doesn't mean that you're lavishly living a lifestyle that you want at the moment, but you have choices at that point to
yes,
decide to go to work or to work on your own business. And it's difficult for somebody who's never done it to kind of, see that as the end goal, but it doesn't start off as you go from zero to now I'm done. There's always progression all the way through. Can you kind of walk us through one of your recent deals from like lead to close? How'd you find it? How'd you fund it? And how'd you profit from it? So people can get an idea of what it takes to get to the point where you start making a deal here, a deal there.
all right. We talked about easy. One of the easiest things you can do is open your mouth.
Mm.
And that's where my last deal came from. It was a referral. I'm always posting people, telling them like, hey, you know, I buy houses. Anybody want to sell one or something like that? And when I'm going to the kids, like basketball practice, whatever it is, I'm letting everybody know what it is that I do. So it's no doubt whatsoever. So, young man called me. He said, look, my mom just passed. She left this house to me. I don't know what to do with it. He's like, "Do you buy houses like that?" He's like, it's gonna need some work." And I was like, "Absolutely, man." And I said, "Where you at right now? Are you close?" I said, "I can come look at it." But I ended up looking at it the next day. So we went and walked through the house. We figured out, stuff that it needed. Had to figure out from him, how the roof was, HVAC, all your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all that stuff. I figured out the age of that. Afterwards, I got a contractor give me a pretty light quote, sight unseen, somebody I do business with all the time. Send that over, and then I call him the very next day. So now we're 24 hours in from the time I seen him, maybe 48 from the phone call. Um, I tell him what I'm gonna offer him, and I give him really why too, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it isn't about just the money part of it. Because some people, yes, they're attached to the homes, but what you're really trying to do is solve the problem.
Yes.
So his mom just passed, and house being probated and all that stuff. I talked to him about getting his will together, getting all that stuff to me, and told him how I could actually help him close the deal and I could actually buy the house from him and closing in cash. You're talking about where you can get your title back. You're literally close, 14 days or so. So that was pretty exciting for him because he had some other stuff that he was wanting to do. Ironically, now that his mom was passed, he was wanting to go ahead and move out of state, get his job and notice and all that stuff. So being able to solve that problem. And then once we got it under contract, I sent that to the attorneys to clear the title. And then after clearing the title, we set up a closing date. I did have an inspection period, had my guys go through and look at it. But after getting the title, getting it back clean, we closed on that deal in exactly, it was a little long for about 16 days. So in about 16 days, that particular deal My wholesale fee on my assignment fee on it was 18,000, and that was just from opening my mouth and letting people know what I do.
I
And
had
that's
a
what I talk about free lead sources.
Yeah, I had a real estate mentor that had this line. She said that that secret agents have skinny kids, and I always thought that was funny because people will get a license, and as they're going through the licensing process, they think like it's some sort of like blessing that you pass, and all of a sudden, all your clients are just going to start to show up and hand you deals, and that's how you're going to make money.
Yeah.
And they never talk about their licenses. They never talk about what they do. They keep it to themselves, and then they wonder why they're not getting any opportunities. Your deal that you're talking about literally came because you talk about what you do every single day. You buy and sell real estate. You're in the wholesale business. You help, you're in a situation where you need to get rid of it quickly. I'm here for you. And you solve their problem. I'm sure there's times where you go through, you get a contractor's assessment, you go back and present to the client. The client's, you know what, I'm just going to do the rehab. Do you mind if you put me up with that contractor? And sometimes you don't close the deal, but it opens up the door to more stuff, right?
Because that person, especially that person, will tell me, look, you know what? He didn't buy my house, but he put me in touch with the contract. This is really great guy, man. If you want to sell your house, give him a shot. And then you get that, and you get all that positive momentum and all that good talk about you. So at the root of it too is just being courteous, being kind to people, treating them basically go the route the way you want to be treated, and
100%.
follow it every single day.
Now, let me ask you, you've read a lot of books, so you know what the gurus push, but you kind of have that street smart approach as well to investing. How do they differ? What's the difference between what you've been able to do and your training out there just doing it versus what the gurus push?
Versus the gurus, I mean, a lot of them have a lot of great advice, but mine comes from being rooted. I mean, I grew up in the housing projects till I was like 13 years old, so all I ever knew was to just go get it. And when it comes to like taking chances and all this stuff, and I'd be the one that's basically like, man, what do you have to lose? So yes, you may have all these processes. You go like A, B, C, D, and all that stuff, but what about when it doesn't work? And a lot of people get stuck at when it doesn't work. When it doesn't work the 10th time, or 12th time, or 15th time, I'm like, well, shoot, man, like I'm gonna go for 20. I'm gonna go 30 times because what I got to lose,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And from where I came from, I had already lost anyway, you know. So it's always that thing of just keep going, keep going, keep going. So that's the difference is, um, of course, just never giving up,
Because
but just
you
always
don't lose.
that way. Yeah.
You can't lose that way. Like
Not until you
you
quit.
until
You
you
don't
quit,
lose
right?
until you quit. Yeah,
Exactly.
you don't lose until you quit,
You
and I've
don't
never quit.
lose. You're 100%. You don't lose until you quit. That's exactly the mentality that you have to have. I always equate it to working out because you only need discipline at the beginning. Then it becomes just who you are, and then there's no quit. That's why the people get super fit because it's just what they do every single day. It's why entrepreneurs are successful. They needed discipline at the beginning to get themselves squared away, to develop the habits in place. But then it's just who they are, and then all of a sudden things start. It looks like it's rolling in, but it's because of the habits and the systems that they've put in place. Now, you have epichwholesaling.com scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Robert, if people want to find out more about wholesaling, they want to find out how they can get started without any money, without any formal training, and they want to talk to you, find out more about what you do, how can they do that?
Well, as you said, the website scrolling on the bottom of the screen, epichwholesaling.com. That's EPICWHOLESALING.com. You can shoot me a message there. Put a comment in. Let me know you heard the show. And matter of fact, Herm, for your listeners, we've been doing a lot of talking about like getting people started and all that. What I want to give to your listeners, let's give them. I'll give them my script, of course, that I use on Zillow when I'm talking to these realtors that have the homes or the people with the expired listings. I give them that. I give them my intro to wholesaling as well, and kind of give them a couple of FAQs of what they should be asking when they do get somebody on the phone. So that way, once you do it, you aren't just stuck. If you all want that, if you can either put a message into me on the website, or you can find me on Facebook. For Facebook, he should have there it is there, at robert.howard.3150. The way you know you got me is you'll see me in a pink suit, with a crisp white shirt on, and it's Robert Howard, Robert, last name Howard. It's a very common name, but if you see that picture, you'll know it's me. So when you all get there, shoot me a message there, and just put next. Type the word, send me a message with the word next. The reason that just came to me now, because like we talked about, everybody gets all the way to the end, or where you're at YouTube University, you got all the education that you could possibly have, but no action. And so now it's what's next.
I
Type the
like
word
that.
next to me, and I'll get that to you, and we'll get you on your way.
There it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. Look, everybody needs a side hustle, and they all require work. They all require a skill set. They all require habits that you need to develop. And the best way to like shorten that learning curve is to find somebody who's already done it. Robert's been building businesses for a while. He's got his wholesale down to a science. You want to know what those next steps are? Reach out to him. Go to epichwholesaling.com. Type in the word next when you send him a message, or find him on Facebook, robert.howard.3150. Send him the word next, and you're going to get that Zillow script. You're going to get a lot of conversation from him, a lot of lessons from him. Learn from the people who have already done what it is you want to do. Is it easy? No. Right? None of this stuff is absolutely like the easiest thing in the world, because you are going to be the biggest roadblock that you have to get over. Build that discipline, build that habits, and you're going to develop the same process and success that other people who have never given up are achieving. One more time, epichwholesaling.com, epichwholesaling.com. Robert, thank you very much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, time to take some action. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.